Hi everyone, Quiveen here from the comfort of my kitchen. In today's video, we are going to take a further quick look at how the sky looks different from different parts of the world. So in previous videos, we've traveled to the Southern Hemisphere or to the Aleutian Islands or the Galapagos Islands to take a look at different events, trying to track down where conjunctions are going to occur. So we're going to take a further look at how the sky can vary from place to place. Of course, if you travel from one part of the world to another, how the sky is going to change will depend on what direction you travel in. So we're looking at the sky here. I'll move us closer to the night of the full moon. We'll say the 24th. We'll say the 24th of February. Right after the evening, so we're here at just coming up to 8 o'clock. We can see that Orion is due south, Jupiter's over there, Sirius is down there, just so that we know, where everything is and how everything looks. We can see that the moon is there in Leo, just past Regulus, the brightest star in Leo. If you travel, well, let's bring up our map here. So here's the map of the world. We can see that Ireland is way up there in the Northern Hemisphere. We're 51 degrees north, so, a little more than halfway to the North Pole from the Equator. 45 degrees north would be a little bit closer to the halfway mark. When we were tracking down conjunctions, we traveled around the world. We went from one line of longitude to another line of longitude, keeping our latitude pretty much the same. And that's what's going to influence our view of conjunctions and where we see the moon and the planets at particular times. So just before we move, the moon is probably the best thing to use as an example here. I might even move the moon back. There we go. So the moon is just in the sickle of Leo here. And we can see that the moon is just on one side of the sickle, Regulus, and this other bright star, Algebra. So these two stars are lower in the sky. They're to the east of the moon as we're seeing it here in Ireland at 8 o'clock. Now, if we push time forward, that will change a little bit. If we push all the way forward towards sunrise, which should be coming up soon. Yeah, the moon's nearly set there. Now, if we take a look in here, we can see that the moon is past that line. The moon is now further east than Regulus and Algebra are. Now that's really a very small shift in the sky. And of course, depending on how long the night is, you can watch that happen over the course of 12 hours or maybe a little more or a little bit less, depending on your hemisphere and the season. But if we come back to 8 o'clock, so back just a little bit more, we'll see that for us here in Ireland at about 8 o'clock, the moon is on the western side of Regulus and Algebra. If we were to move ourselves now to another part of the world, we might as well take a big jump all the way over here towards Eurasia, all the way over here. I'll try and keep things pretty much the same. It'll say Northern Asia here. That's a little bit further north than we are in Cork. Let's bring things down just a little bit. I'm not sure where we're going, simply because my knowledge of this region of the world isn't the best, but we're just, we may still be in Russia, maybe just across the border from Russia here. So still 51 degrees north. And taking a look at the sky here, the time has changed because we've moved. So we're looking at a slightly different time here because we're in a different part of the world. But if we move ourselves back to 8 o'clock, if you are in Central Asia at 8 o'clock, we can see there's a bigger gap there between the moon and the line between Regulus and Algebra. And if we moved our way all the way across to the moon about to set, we can see that the moon is nearly crossing that line, but it's not quite across it the way we see it here in Ireland. So we're still seeing pretty much the same things in the same places. And of course, the stars will be practically identical. So if we move ourselves forward to 8 o'clock there, we can see that Orion is a little past the south, but still very close to the south in the sky. So this is why the stars aren't going to appear particularly different, whereas conjunctions between the moon and other objects may look quite different. If we move ourselves in the opposite direction, I believe we will be in Canada if we are at 51 degrees north. It's the 40-something parallel divides America. That's close enough. We're pretty close to the middle of, I assume we're reasonably close to Saskatchewan there, Manitoba maybe. So there we are, pretty close to the middle of Canada. And of course, we've moved now forward. We've moved around the globe back into daytime. So we'll have to push all the way back into nighttime. And there we go. So we'll bring Orion back up to the south, close to 8 o'clock. And here we are in Canada. The moon has already moved across that line. It's jumped from one side of Regulus and Algebra to the other. So that is one of the changes that we get if we vary where we are in terms of, I always say longitude, even though really it would be longitude. I always say longitude, even though there's no D in there. Don't know why that happens. If we change latitude, of course, things will be a little bit different. So let's start back here in Ireland. Of course, the time has changed again. We'll bring that back. So here we are looking into Orion as we come up to about 8 o'clock. And what we're going to do is first off move north. There's not much up here in the north. I know that there is an island off the coast of Iceland roughly there. It's not very clearly visible on this map for sure. And now we're still seeing Orion, but it's much lower in the sky. Sirius is practically on the horizon. The moon is still there. That's all fine. If we turn ourselves around to the north, then the North Star will be much higher in the sky, way up there. And that's because we've moved closer to the north. So we're seeing the North Star further from the horizon. The closer we get to the equator, the closer the North Star gets to the horizon. And that's where we're going to go next. We're going to go down from this very northerly point in Europe, which is, it's not exactly level with where we are in Cork. It's pretty close. Yep, still about 8 degrees west, so that's fine. Moving straight down, I'm pretty sure we'll be somewhere in Portugal if we're at 8 degrees west, give or take. Yep, it's registering it as Southern Europe. I guess we're maybe a little off the coast of Portugal here, but that's fine. 7 degrees west is still close enough. Now that we're so much closer to the equator, Orion is much higher in the sky. Sirius is there and all of Canis Major is clearly visible. The moon is nice and high in the sky. But because we haven't changed our longitude, the moon is still on the same side of Regulus and Algebra as we would be seeing it at this time here in Ireland. Now, I think that the time down here has changed a little bit, but it's not too bad. We've only moved a little bit across the world. Now, if we take a look into the North Star is much closer to the horizon, and that's going to continue changing as we get closer to the equator. So I will bring us a little bit closer to the equator here in, well, we'll be moving from the continent of Europe into the continent of Africa here. And as we get close to the equator, this is still a good few degrees above the equator. But now we're so close to the equator, we're seeing constellations that aren't visible from here in Ireland at this time of the year. The moon is still in the same place relative to Regulus and Algebra. And if we take a look over here, the North Star is practically, well, not practically on the horizon. It's still above the horizon by about 17 degrees, but much lower in the sky, much closer to the horizon. And we're even missing a good chunk of the plough here because it's so close to the horizon. And at certain times of the night, at certain times of the year, you wouldn't even see the plough this close to the equator. It would be under the North Star and under the horizon. So that's how those things are going to look for us. And for us here in Ireland, you know, down here in Africa, even in Portugal or Gibraltar, it seems very far away. Whereas it has come to my attention that I have some viewers from the United States. So let's go right up to the Great Lakes. If I'm just on one side of the Great Lakes, then I'm just across the border into the United States of America rather than being in Canada in North America. I do apparently have some viewers from the United States, so we're going to have a quick comparison here between the view very high up in the United States. You know, I might actually move it. We'll go both down and across the United States. How about that? We'll come over here to hopefully near New York. I think upstate New York will be closer to there, closer to the lakes, but again, my knowledge of the United States is not the best. It is very far away from me here in Ireland. And we're seeing Orion there right above the south a little bit earlier in the evening. We are that little bit around the world. We have changed our longitude here as well as our latitude. But we're seeing there that Orion, a little bit higher, Sirius and Canis Major, a little bit higher, still very nice and clearly visible, similar to what we'd see in Ireland, a little bit higher in the sky. There's the North Star, still a reasonable height above the north point of the horizon, and we can see all of the plough there, nice and clear, nice and fine. That's lovely. This is what we'd expect. And if you are there, well, the moon is almost directly in line with Algebra and Regulus, so that's pretty nice. That looks nice in the sky. If we then jump all the way to the other side of the country, And the United States, it's not even the biggest country. We could take a look at the variation in Russia or in Canada, but a lot of that variation is going to be in longitude rather than in latitude. The United States has quite a big variation in latitude, not as big, of course, as Chile down there. That's going to be a little bit bigger, but we will do that in another video. Now that we've hopped all the way across to California, of course, it's still daytime. The United States spans several time zones. And here we are. That bright star Canopus is after coming into the sky, and we've got Orion really high up there in the sky. The moon is now just a little bit past that line of Regulus and Algebra because we have traveled across the continent of North America as well as down the continent of America. And the fact that we've traveled down the continent is a lot more apparent here. Looking into the north, we can see that the North Star definitely closer to the horizon. And if that's a little bit hard to tell, we're missing the end part of the plough. So the plough is now low enough in the sky that the kind of end part of the handle of the Big Dipper, as would be said in North America, that's not quite visible anymore. So this is just within the Northern Hemisphere. And in the case of that quick example, within one nation, there can be quite a variation between what you see depending on your latitude and your longitude. Now, of course, for varying your longitude, where exactly you're going to see the moon at certain times of the night in your local time is going to change. And if you vary your latitude, well, we've already taken a look into the Southern Hemisphere on this channel. You know that once we start crossing that equatorial line, we're going to see very, very different things in the sky. Hopefully in future videos, I'll be able to bring us down here much closer to the Southern Hemisphere, and perhaps we'll take a look at the equinox in the North Pole and in the South Pole once we get there. I'll have to try and remember that video idea. But for now, I hope you enjoyed this quick look in the at some of the different areas of the sky, some of the ways in which the view changes as we travel around the globe. If you did like the video, then of course please do like it, and if you enjoy this kind of content, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you'd like to see the view of the sky from the North Pole or the South Pole during the equinox, hopefully that video will come up, and you're more likely to see it if you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. You can also take a look at some of this information on quebeanscontent.ie, and as I always forget to mention, I am also on Instagram under quebeanscontent, posting short clips from these videos if you'd like to follow me there as well. So thank you for watching, and I hope that you'll join me next time.